Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry back with another custom card review to talk about the cards that you, the BERRYVERSE members, made. And we're going to talk about 5 winners, and then I also got my own card mixed in for the keyword cost. That is the focus of all the custom cards that you're going to see. Cost like energy cost, right? And maybe there's some creative applications that we'll get to in a moment, but the next challenge is going to be themed Nintendo. Now, I know that's a little bit different. This is Marvel Snap and such, but I think a lot of people like to kind of stretch the limits with the characters, and I want to do this kind of challenge, I think, once a month, right? We'll do standard Marvel themed challenges the other 3 weeks, and then once a month we'll mix it in. We'll do something different. And because it's such a fun topic with Nintendo, like, I don't care as long as they were like in a game or somehow correlated to Nintendo, then it qualifies. I'm not going to dig too deep into the characters, okay? And anything goes in terms of the keywords, so just create whatever. Think of it as thematically as possible. Try to really tie the effect and the stat line and all that good stuff to the character as much as possible. That's what I'll really be looking for. And if you want to submit a card, you can join the BERRYVERSE Discord, link in the description below, and you can create a custom card using this link. That'll also be in the description. Then you can post 1 submission in the weekly challenge channel. If you want to resubmit, just go back, delete your old one, please, and thank you. Hope you join the BERRYVERSE. We got an awesome community building up. Love to see everyone's creative submissions, and you have a chance, if you submit a card, to win a season pass. And this time around, it's question mark who won the season pass. So congratulations with your card here called Prism. For 1 ongoing, if you're winning this location, your cards cost 1 less. I love that. I think that's actually a really cool idea, because winning and losing should be added more into Marvel Snap. Make it a little bit of a focus to try and win the locations. Anyways, you don't have to really make a very good card if you don't want to. All you got to do is submit a card and you have a chance to win the season pass. This time it was question mark. So congrats, but let's get to this week's winners. All right, and of course we're going to kick it off with the card that I came up with here, and it is Throg. Now, I know there's a variant for Thor that is Throg, but Team Secondary has kind of said that they would, still make cards based on those characters, even if there's a variant existing for an active card in the game. So I think it's fair. I think Throg would be a very cool character to come to Snap, just because he's a frog and he's Thor. Thor powers, variant of Thor. So here we have Throg, a 0/3, costs 4 if there's an empty location. So what I'm trying to do here is that there's a lot of cards in Marvel Snap, and I think we're all drawn to cost reduction. But I was thinking, what if the base cost of the card is low, so it's a very good stat line on its own right, but the kicker is that if there's a condition on the field that is met, it's going to have an increased cost and be more difficult to play. So if you think about it, turn 1, you cannot play this, because all the locations are going to be empty. And then it's going to be a 4/3. And you're going to kind of struggle until the late game. You'll probably be able to play this as a 0/3. Now, I could have clarified a little bit more, but I feel like the text was clean enough. This is opponent's locations as well. So it's your 3 locations, your opponent's 3 locations. All the locations, if they're all empty, you will not be able to play Throg as a 0/3. There has to be a card in each location. That means locations like Sanctum Sanctorum, Death's Domain, these sorts of difficult to play at locations, Luke's Bar, it would be tough to actually land a card there and make Throg discounted. So I feel like it's pretty fair, but there's some nice combinations, right? Jane Foster. Of course, I wanted to tie in, a lot of the Thor theme is around drawing 0-cost cards from your deck, or shuffling 0-cost cards into your deck. So I feel like Throg fits that pretty nicely. You could maybe play Thor. If Throg's still in the deck, you could use Jane Foster on 5, draw your Throg, draw your Mjolnir, and that'd be a pretty fun swing there. And then also, of course, probably the number 1 is Mobius, right? Mobius is going to allow this to always be a 0/3, because he'll go down to his base cost of 0, and he won't be affected by his ability. You could also look at things like 0, but I feel like this is such a low power output, just being 3 power. You don't really need to 0 this. It wouldn't be that worthwhile. I think actually, in most case scenarios, this would be a difficult card to actually warrant putting into a deck. I thought about maybe giving it more power, but 0/3, you got to watch out. There's, that can always pop up and be a little bit too strong. And with cards like Debris in the junk style deck, forcing your opponent to have cards on their side of the field while also failing yours, I feel like Debris is one of the best combinations with Throg, because then there's just one location that you hope your opponent plays a card, and then bam, you got a 0/3 frog on your hands. I was going to say throg, frog, throg. Okay, there you go. That is my card. Let's get to this week's winners. Number 5, TablePlay's Supreme Intelligence. All right, so the Supreme Intelligence is a 2-0. Not that great, but at the end of the game, if this is your highest cost card in play, gain +8 power. That's amazing. That becomes a 2-8. The reason I love this card right here is because you're trying to build your deck with 2 or less cost cards, which is not all that easy. And you're trying to get enough power, of course, to win a bunch of locations. And sure, Supreme Intelligence is going to help you. But there's actually, if you look at it, there's not a lot of cards that can synergize with the Supreme Intelligence necessarily that are 2 and under. It's going to be a little bit difficult. So some of the cards I was thinking of was Goose, right? If I can only play 2 or less cards to trigger my Supreme Intelligence, I want to make sure that my opponent can't play too many big cards. So I feel like that's a pretty nice play, and you're not restricting yourself at all, so you don't have to worry about where you throw down the Goose. Another one is Bast, right? A lot of those cards tend to have 0 power, like Supreme Intelligence itself. This goes to a 2-3, can get +8. We're looking at net gains of 11 power. That's pretty nice. I think that's a pretty good swing. So Bast, great option with this card. And then Elsa as well. Probably a card that is almost being slept. I know she's in LOKI decks a lot, but she's still really good after her nerf, giving +2. And if we're going to flood the board with a bunch of cheap things, she's going to find a lot of value with Supreme Intelligence. But I just love the deck building aspect behind this theory, behind this card. I think that'd be a lot of fun. A very high IQ, a high intelligence, you could say, for deck building and making something work here. And it kind of correlates to a Cerebro deck. Like, you build a Cerebro deck, you're building a very specific list. You're doing the same with Supreme Intelligence, and they're both surrounding your head. I don't know. Yeah, helmet, you put the helmet on. Maybe there's like a Cerebro 8 with Supreme Intelligence, huh? No, probably not. No, that probably wouldn't work. But there you go. Very cool idea. I love it. Let's get to number 4. Number 4, Retsu's Ouroboros. Oh my goodness, dude. If you don't know Ouroboros, you gotta watch Loki Season 2. Probably the best character of that season. Such a fun character. The author of the TVA handbook. Amazing. So here we have Ouroboros, a 3-4. Draw this card on turn 3. On reveal, if you played a 1 cost card on turn 1 and a 2 cost card on turn 2, draw a 4, 5, and 6 cost card. Now, I typically like to stray away from cards that have a lot of text or maybe are a little bit complex, but I really love the theme here. It's so good, right? He's the author of the TVA, setting up that timeline, and that's exactly what this card is looking to do. You got to play something on 1. You got your Quicksilver. You got to play something on 2. You got your Domino. Then you're getting Ouroboros in the hand on 3, just like those other 2. And then you're playing Ouroboros. Bam, you got your 4, 5, and 6. And that is the game. You're on autopilot. Possibly the best Agatha list could be with Ouroboros because it just sets Agatha up so perfectly. But I was also thinking Living Tribunal, which might seem a little bit weird, but the reason I was thinking about this card is because you can set up, because you're drawing so specifically, this is from your deck, you're drawing a 4, 5, and 6 cost card from your deck that you brought to the table. You can very specifically get a nice combo. So I'm thinking like Iron Man, Living Tribunal, whatever else, right? Whatever's a good 4-drop, and you get that crazy high power lane, and then it distributes to the other 2. So just as an example, I have Living Tribunal there as like one of those potential 3-card combos that you have in your deck that you guarantee draw because of Ouroboros. Like, you only bring 1 6-drop to the table. You only bring 1 4 and 1 5. You hope that you don't draw them in the early turns, but even if you do, it's fine. You'll draw Ouroboros on time. You'll play Quicksilver, you'll play Domino. Boom. You have this crazy combo, which almost can make it a little bit broken because draw in Snap is very powerful. If you can get to your combo quicker than your opponent, you're probably in a good spot and going to win the game. So very, very cool thematically, but it might be a little bit busted in the game. And it's a little bit too complex, maybe. I know that seems a little bit weird because it's not overly complex, but Snap has fairly simple mechanics, sort of. Not all the time. It's inconsistent. But, anyways, I think this is a really good idea. And I love the character too. So well done, Retsu. Let's go to number 3. Number 3, Jesus Kid Loki. Oh man, Jesus, let's go. 4-3 on reveal. Fill your opponent's hand with cards from your starting deck. Give them +1 cost. Love it. It's a reverse Loki, right? Loki right now, as you know it, 4-5, and you're filling your hand up with your opponent's starting deck, but it gets cost reduction. Whereas Kid Loki is filling your opponent's hand with a bunch of stuff that they don't necessarily want and making it more expensive, more difficult to play, which is really toxic and really good with Ronin decks. Let's go finally get a Ronin deck to take off. You know what I'm saying? That'd be a lot of fun, especially if you did that on turn 6. You set up Ronin on 5, you play Kid Loki on 6. It doesn't really matter that, they're not necessarily going to care that they got their hand filled with a bunch of junk at that point, but it does buff up your own in a whole bunch. That's pretty cool. Another one is Mobius. You could have just Mobius out there to make sure that that +1 cost sticks, and they're not doing like some Sarah shenanigans or something like that. You got to watch out. But yeah, I thought this card was really cool, really flavorful. I love the idea of flipping around the Loki effect. And honestly, this would be it's crazy to say, but this would be less toxic than the current Loki, right? Loki is kind of a fun card right now, but the problem being that a lot of people don't like their cards being played against them. If you just like fill your opponent's hand, I don't know if it's that big of a deal for them. You might burn one draw, but we know milling isn't that big of a deal in Snap. So I think it would be okay. Even if you did burn a draw, and then you might be giving them decent cards. Like, you got to bring decent cards to the table. So, and they only cost one more. So it could backfire. It could have almost no effect, or it could be a really good game-winning play. So pretty cool card. I'd like to see more Lokis in Snap, I think. Would be a lot of fun. Get those variants going. We got the Thors going. Let's get the Lokis going. Anyways, very cool idea. On to number 2. Number 2, Clogged Red She-Hulk. Oh man, so this one's so cool. So a 6/7 Red She-Hulk costs 1 if your opponent has skipped a turn this game. So very interesting. The first thought that I have with this is maybe this is not good at all. How do you deck build with this? But then I was thinking, okay, turn 1. Right? Turn 1, a lot of people tend to skip turn 1. Unless they got that Nebula, that Deadpool, Sunspy, they just so happen to draw that turn 1 card. All of a sudden, Quicksilver becomes a huge counter. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if they didn't draw that card, then they're probably skipping turn 1, and then bam. Red She-Hulk is a 1/7 the rest of the game. You wait until turn 6 to play this card. It's going to be an amazing swing. But the problem that I do see here is that you are at the mercy of whatever your opponent's going to do. What if they do have the curve? Then you're never going to get the discount out of this. You're hoping they skip a turn. You can't really force them to skip a turn. In the past, there used to be like wave shenanigans where you'd brick their hand and they can't do anything. But that's been nerfed. You can't even use wave. I don't really even know how you can make them skip a turn. Like Sandman couldn't do it. You're hoping locations maybe, right? Dream Dimension or something along those lines would allow them, or the skipped rock or the collapsed mine where you got to skip to destroy the rocks. That's a great location for Red She-Hulk. But are you running this card for that instance, that variance, that chance that the location pops up? Or are you hoping that they skip their turn 1? Or you just have a lot of these cards that get amazing cost reduction if certain conditions are met. You just toss in like Miles Morales with a move deck, Red She-Hulk and Stature. You just do all that stuff so that on turn 6 you drop all these 1 for 7, 1 for 6, 1 for 5 powered cards. That'd be crazy. That'd be a lot of fun. But ultimately, yeah, I don't know. Difficult one to deck build, but very cool. Maybe it's like a Lockjaw deck, but even then I'd rather a higher power thing to come out of the Lockjaw cycle. So it's just an interesting card. I think it could be game winning in some scenarios, but hard to warrant putting in a deck. Might get cut often, which makes it very balanced. There we go. That's pretty good, right? You could even Moon Girl this if they skipped a turn, and then you got 2 1/7s. Oh my gosh, that could be a really nasty combo. By the way, amazing variants. I love these. So I think that's a Scotty Young baby variant on the bottom left. That looks so good. And then the middle one looks super badass. And then you got like an anime chibi version of Red She-Hulk on the top left. Very, very cool variants. I love to see the different art styles because that's Marvel Snap, right? Every character has different styles depending on the artist. So very cool to visualize this package all coming together. I love it. Very cool card. Think it's balanced. Maybe there's a crazy broken combo I'm not thinking of. But yeah, you got to hope your opponent skips a turn. That's not easy. So thank you, Clogged. Let's get to number 1. Number 1, TheArtist Hope Summers. All right, Hope Summers, man, I have seen this character used a lot. We've talked about this character in multiple winning submissions in the past. Really would love to see it come to Marvel Snap, but she is here, a 6/0 ongoing, has the ongoing effects of your other highest cost ongoing cards. And that could be plural. So, very interesting deck building application here. For instance, quick and very fun example could be Cerebro 0. Yeah, you heard me right. Cerebro 0, you use Cerebro with Mystique, who gains an ongoing ability, and then you got +2. Now all of your 0 power cards are at 4. Hope Summer is going to adopt both of those abilities and be at 0 power herself, so she will shoot up to 8. She's taking on 2, a Mystique effect, a Cerebro effect, and then they're both out there. That's 8 to all of your 0 powered cards. That'd be so much fun. Another way to use it almost in that scenario is in a Cerebro 3 list where you end up using Bast. And then you get that +3. Like, that would be wild. That would be so much fun. Another example is if we were to, I don't have it here, but use a 6 cost, right? So let's say we were able to cheat out Null early. He's got a bunch of power because of that ongoing effect from all those destroyed cards. Then you use Hope Summers, who essentially copies his ability, and she's just like another Null that you got out there. That'd be pretty nice. I think that'd be pretty good. But I'm thinking in most case scenarios, you want to stray away from the 6 cost because that's a little bit too expensive to combo with Hope Summers. You have to play Hope at some point, right? So I'm thinking you keep it a little bit lower, and we probably want to get more than 1 out, right? So I was thinking, what about the 4 drops? That could be crazy. You got Darkhawk and Miss Marvel. Now your Hope Summers is giving +5 power to the adjacent locations if you have her in the middle, as along with Miss Marvel, and she's getting the power from whatever amount of cards are in your opponent's deck. So she becomes a powerful card in her own right while giving power to adjacent locations. That'd be bonkers. And if we can even find a way to use Zabu to cheat out a couple more 4 cost ongoing effects, I don't know exactly, but there's stuff like Warpath. I'm sure there's a bunch of others. Even Wong. You set up some crazy Wong shenanigans with Hope Summers, and you just go bananas. But the only problem there is that she's a 6 cost. So maybe set up with Magic and open up another turn. Like, there's a lot of deck building potential, a lot of combinations available. We could even talk about Iron Man with Mr. Negative, right? That'd be crazy. You flip them around. I think it'd be a little bit difficult. I don't know what the cost is of a negatized card on the board, but I think it would revert to its base cost, to avoid things like Killmonger and whatnot. So I'm pretty sure when Iron Man is negatized, he's on the board, he's reading as a 5/5 because he got that 5 power. So Hope Summers could probably copy that. She'd be at 6 power. She gets that'd be crazy. There's a lot of shenanigans to be had with this card. That's why I thought it was so good. And we cannot not talk about the variants here. Amazing, dude. I love how you clarify what type of variant it is. The artwork here, the color palette is gorgeous. The different types of variants that you have. Like, look at this one, like the more like painted style. Amazing. The Rebel variant. Very cool. Great card. Amazing card. I would love to see this in Marvel Snap. I think it'd be a lot of fun. A very fun and strong 6-drop, which sometimes it's hit or miss with the 6 drops. It's hard to get a good one, and this would definitely be that. And it has a lot of counters too. If we're thinking it's broken, you're exposed to all of the ongoing counters, right? Exposed to what if your highest cost card disappears, gets destroyed or something like that, and then you can't really get that good value out of Hope Summers that you really wanted to. So I actually think there's a lot of ways to stop this card, shut it down, and also a lot of combinations available. So very cool. Love those types of cards. Thank you for submitting, artists. You always do a fantastic job. But everyone, thank you so much for submitting to the Berryverse. I appreciate it. I love reviewing your cards. Next week, we got the Nintendo Challenge. I'm excited to see what characters you guys come up with. Try and pick your favorites. Try to be super thematic. That's what I'm looking for. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then the week after that, everybody, it's going to be a 2-week challenge, okay? Not this Nintendo one. This Nintendo one will be next week. But after that, it's going to be a 2-week challenge because we have the new season coming up and a new patch with data mines and all that. I got to cover that stuff. So I'll keep you guys updated with that when it comes down the pipeline. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.